Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Talk, the officially unofficial Transformers TCG podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Scott of VectorSigma.info, but we do have a special guest here today. You may have heard of him before. He may or may not be the reigning world champion. Dan, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys?
It's actually not your first time on the show, question mark?
No, I think the last time I was on the show was post the banning of swap parts.
Yeah, it was some ban.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been some time, although you've obviously been busy. You've done a few things since then.
Yeah, you know.
No big deal. So, it's funny. We were obviously doing show prep leading up into this. We were trying to plan out exactly how we were going to talk about the PPG event that happened this past weekend. And we were going to talk about another local event that happened over in South Jersey this weekend. Obviously, successful turnout at both, and congratulations to Stefan and John, respectively, to taking down those events. Well done. But then there was some news, gentlemen, that got dropped on our heads a scant few hours ago.
Yes.
Don't sound so excited. You sound so thrilled about it. You can see it on the screen, anybody who's watching. If you are listening to this audio and I guess are trying to catch up, we finally got some official news, and the spoiler season has now started for Wave 5, so we're diving right back into it. Feels like yesterday, mostly because we did like a gazillion hours of spoiler shows last time around.
You guys had a good 2-month break, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Yeah. Oh, the time in between, was definitely there. Don't get me wrong, but it just felt like and given that it seems to be starting earlier. So, okay, I'll get this out in front. My one complaint about the news is that the set's releasing on April 17th, and today is not April 16th.
Oh.
So, I mean, Wizards should take care of that. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I think they should do something about, the calendar and how time works.
Sure.
So, before we jump into everything, because there's even though there's only a few cards to cover, in fact, there's only 3 cards. But there's a lot of things and a lot of parts that go with it. Was there anything that stood out to you, gentlemen? I guess, Dan, we'll pitch it to you first, about the announcement as a whole, or anything leading in that you want to hit or touch on before we dive in?
April 17th is a long way away.
Yeah.
So, just as a competitive standpoint, it's exciting to see these new cards, but we're still very much involved with the meta of Wave 4. So it's hard to get too excited, I'm in that weird tweener phase of I've said on plenty of times that I'm not too crazy about spoilers until I can have them in my hand and play with them, but
yeah,
specifically the Headmaster thing I'm really excited to talk about, because I just love this whole idea altogether.
Yeah, it's definitely very unique, and I mean, right from the word go, or in the IGN article, it's definitely got some gears turning, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Scott? Anything stand out to you?
It's cool that both of the new abilities seem to be about starting in play with battle cards, or some form of upgrade to your character that costs you something, mostly stars. Right. So I find that mechanic, I find both new mechanics to be kind of related to one another,
right,
in terms of that, just you're starting with essentially battle cards in play.
To that end, I do also find that very interesting, because one of the initial exciting things about the game as a whole is starting in play with the characters. You're guaranteed to have things, whatever those things are, bots, or now these new cards, that your deck, if it's focused on these things, you're going to see those particular things every game. So it's definitely a different feel than, oh, this is an exciting new battle card that is 1 of 40 or 3 of 40. It's, I'm going to see this every game and be able to play with this card.
Right.
Yeah. one other detail that is not Wave 5 related, just to take a step back for a moment. I started out by saying we were originally going to talk about all of the events this past weekend, and while we're not going to cover all the details on this show, we may allude to it, obviously, but definitely check out vectorsigma.info. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of content related to the events that have just occurred. Just kind of felt like we should jump over to this new topic. Is that okay with you guys? Would you prefer if we went and covered all the tournaments instead?
Yeah, there's already YouTube content out there, and there for some of them, and then
you can
term reports too.
You can briefly check out the finals conversation that me and Stefan did that went live as of recording today.
Awesome.
So we talked about it.
I figured you guys might have a few things to go over from that event.
Yeah.
So I guess without much further ado, we'll dive right into Titan Masters Attack, which is going to be Wave 5. Okay, so get the silly question out of the way. To me, or maybe not question, but statement, to me, the name is a little odd. I don't know. It just seems weird. Titan Masters Attack. I don't know. Is it just me? Bueller?
I mean, I don't know much about I don't know much about Titan Masters versus the old Headmasters. I didn't know that like Headmasters isn't a term anymore. So like I don't. It's new to me. So
yeah, it was I guess a rebranding. I don't know if this is one of those they lost the copyright on it and had to come up with something new, or it was a conscious effort to just we want to be something else. Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know the backstory of like where the heads came from and stuff like that, like I did in the old version. So
I mean, there's some weird comic stuff that I'm sure we'll bring up at some point. I mean, I guess the original toy one, I'm wearing the shirt with My Mechanical Romance with Chrome Dome and Rewind, so I got one of the headmasters. But yeah, there's kind of a convoluted origin for how the comics at least tried to integrate it way back when. The more recent stuff and the real life logistics go down a different route. So, the fluff stuff aside, we're going to talk about Orbital Strike first, which is it's one of the brand new mechanics. Is that what we're going to call it for the stratagems?
Card type.
Is it actually like it? I mean, I guess it is a card type. So
Card type.
So Orbital Strike, it's specifically for Autobot Cosmos Recon and Communication. And here's the card text, and then we'll get into what stratagems actually are. The card text is replace the text 12 stars or fewer on your Autobot Cosmos Recon and Communication with 21 stars or fewer. And then the reminder text, which, as a reminder to everybody out there listening and watching, isn't the literal rules text. It's play up to one stratagem with the named character. Stratagems begin on the battlefield, and this costs 1 star. Let me kick it to you first, Scott. What are your initial thoughts on whether it's stratagems, this particular thing? What jumps out to you first?
I like the concept of stratagems because, like, if you play a lot of video games, like I play a lot of gacha games and things like that, there's always patches that happen in games, and it's a lot of times it's to like buff underpowered characters, especially in some of the games I play, or they give them new abilities and things like that. And I think this fits perfectly with that theme.
Mm-hmm.
I think this allows old characters to see more play, and more importantly, to just have more options available to them, which I think is another theme of the set, is just you have more options in building than you had before.
Right.
Because they all cost stars, I mean, like, it's going to depend on the power level of the... Like, it's almost dependent on the power level... It's a lot dependent on the power level of the original character, and, like, what is adding... I don't know, 1 to 3. I don't know what the max is, like, obviously, yet. Like how many stars you can add to a character to really make it more competitive. Like, we've talked in the past about how the stats on the characters alone have gotten, especially from a hit point perspective, have gotten, like, much higher recently. So a lot of the older characters just don't see play simply from a stat block perspective. So I guess it just depends on obviously how powerful of an ability is being added to the cards, but also like if there's stats being added to the cards that we'll see in the future, or if there's, you know, essentially, like, I mean, it really opens up a lot of options. I mean, obviously, making a character quote cost 1 more star, but literally changing the text on them. Some of them might include completely new text on them. Some of them might have, like I said stat upgrades, or like, in this case, it's like a changed card text. Like, there's just a lot of options here, around using this type of card to help out. Not necessarily underpowered, but just like
underutilized.
Underutilized cards. The only fear I have is that, like, a lot of the underutilized characters in the past might have been because they had huge star costs, and so adding more stars to that, by definition, is going to make that situation worse.
Yes.
So they have to be, like, almost powerful enough to make up for the character's shortcomings to begin with,
right?
And then go above and beyond by adding more stars to it, especially like in the case of like certain like 12 and 13 cost characters that might have not seen enough play.
Right. Now, in Cosmos's case, it's funny, you were mentioning the stat inflation on more recent characters. There was such a time where it was Cosmos standing alone at the top of that heap of gigantic piles of hit points. It's not quite so much the case anymore. So, I mean, we can get into the specifics about this particular stratagem and Cosmos as a whole, but I agree with all your original points about the card type stratagem seems fantastic, and it seems like a very, I guess in hindsight, obvious thing to do to some extent, where it's like, well, yeah, we start with these guys in play. Why not just give them something to have the backwards, I don't want to say backwards compatibility, but the legacy card for old stuff. This isn't that much of a step away from, say, a random tank card or a random truck card supplementing the old tribes, as opposed to, we just got spaceships and boats more recently as tribal cards. It would be very easy, and I've seen in other games where those sort of things are left by the wayside in favor of whatever the new shiny is. So, I got my truck card. I won't see another truck card again for like 10 years. This gives you the legacy stuff to try and supplement those older characters, or older strategies for that matter. Are you of the same mind, Dan? Like, are you interested in this, or do you think it was a whiff, or what's your initial thoughts on this?
Oh, I definitely don't think it's a whiff. Mainly just because of the possibilities that it comes with.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, this opens up exactly what Scott says. There could just be a straight, patch 4.2, the Megatron patch, like whatever you want to call it. And it's just endless of the ideas that it can do. And then, like, the fact that obviously it just starts in play, like, let's put this in perspective. Imagine if mounted missiles started in play, right? Like, so now you just put an upgrade on one of your characters with +2 attack, wherever you want it to be. If that card started in play, that card would be pretty good, right? So
it might be okay. It might be all right.
Right. So the idea of them giving us these potential, very specific character cards is awesome. I mean, it gives them room to, attempt to maybe fix slight mistakes they made in the past, and then it also gives room, even if they just like want to give someone the option of like, hey, we built this character this way, but for an extra star or two, you can have it that way. I just think that's very interesting.
Yeah, the possibilities, I think that's a good thing to call out. Just all the potential that is contained in this. It's not to say that upgrades and battle cards, the more traditional ones, have expended their options, because that's obviously not the case, but it does give you a totally different axis to go with these and change play patterns on a ton of different levels.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you guys, are you excited to play Cosmos now? I think that we have to do that question of, are you ready to sleeve up Cosmos? UFOs left and right.
I've been doing cartwheels ever since it was announced.
Well, Dan, how many, and this is a running joke that maybe people out there don't realize.
All right?
How many Cosmoses did you open to start the game when you first started playing?
At PAX Unplugged 2018, I opened 3 Cosmoses in 2 boxes. It was impressive.
And then I think you continue to open Cosmos for like
Yeah,
months afterwards.
I've gotten them. All right, I've gotten them.
Well, their stocks are going up, obviously. So,
thank God.
what about you, Scott? Are you ready to run into battle with Cosmos backing you up?
I mean, I never sleeved them up before, admittedly.
So, where is this sentence going to end?
Well, I think it's interesting. So I think the two problems that there were with Cosmos were you don't have a lot of control over when the ability, like you can get screwed easily, and the ability won't happen when he's actually attacking.
Right.
I think you have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to make sure that it's actually going to happen when you want it to happen. Like you can screw yourself over with untimely, bold, tough, whites that you didn't need to see at certain points. Like it's a difficult deck to build, not necessarily a difficult deck to play, but like a difficult deck to build. And obviously, like again, you're at the mercy of like your opponent. Like if they have a lot of tough characters or something like that, you could. It's not as ubiquitous as like the Lord Megatron ability that just happens. Like you actually have to like.
There's some effort involved.
Yeah, it's like the way Omega Supreme works, for example, is you would ideally like to combine while you're attacking, but if you don't, you still get to become Omega Supreme. Imagine if you didn't get to become Omega Supreme unless you were attacking. Like that's where you're at with this, is that
right.
It may not happen ideally. But on the flip side, the other problem was even after jumping through all those hoops, he wasn't able to take out your
Battlefield Legend.
Well, just your opponent's most important character at all,
right?
Ever, I guess you could say, like for most competitive decks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you were even if you were a wider deck, spending your 11 stars to jump through all these hoops and take out your opponent's Wheeljack or something like that still wasn't worth it. Like you're not your higher star cost character should have been able to win in that combat over time anyway and get you more value. Like now that is solved by this card in fairness. Like he literally takes out everybody except for Metroplex and Combiners,
right?
And Triptychon, I guess. So that issue is definitely solved. So now we're just back to the original. How many hoops do you have to jump through and how difficult is it? I can't answer that because I've never actually played with him, so I don't know how difficult that actually is. But I assume it's still pretty difficult, but at least one of the two problems I think that existed for him have been solved.
Yeah, it definitely, if it doesn't 100% solve it, which it may, it certainly gets a good portion of the way there. I guess there's the oddball chance that we see a resurgence of Combiners or Metroplex and Triptychon are now a thing and this gets awkward again. But yeah, it definitely addresses at least portions of that. So what about you, Dan? You have your Cosmoses. Have you built a shrine? Have you built a Cosmos out of your Cosmoses that you're going to have to take apart to build this deck?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to. Yes, Vince. No, I mean, the interesting thing is, at him with this card at 12 stars, you can still put him in a 4-wide deck and try and set yourself up that way. But it's kind of like Scott said, it's very hard to predict everything about the character and this ability. And it's like, yes, you can do your best to plan it out, right? But if one thing goes the wrong way, then this whole ability may be a wash.
Yeah, you may just lose on that turn. Right.
I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, it's something that, given the inherent randomness that both of you guys were explaining, it's tough for me to really get behind it. It's definitely something that we talked about it, you and I, Scott, way back when we saw UFO. Does that make a difference? Because now you can churn through with more consistency. Having played a lot of Daring Escape over the last several months, I do have to ask the question of, if you're going to go through all these hoops to draw most or all of your deck to ensure the Cosmos goes off, could you just be doing the other thing instead? Potentially more consistently and faster. I mean, I get they're different, but you're going to be using a lot of the same cards, I think, to make it happen.
See, I don't think so. I think it's going to operate more like overwhelming advantage.
Okay.
Where you're setting yourself up for, except for at this point, in play, quote, win condition.
Yeah.
And I think shells like the Nemesis Airstrike deck, the top 8 at Energon Invitational are perfect for this.
Well, now it's 12 stars, so yeah, it's gonna.
Right. exactly. And like he got to play a lot of the quote normal cards.
Right.
Like you just had to put in things like, maybe like enthusiast or system reboots and things like, or UFOs, like you said, to like to draw more cards and like, obviously more bold effects to make sure like, oh, I'm going into this turn, like I need my backup beam and a supercharge, or I need all three of my focus fires, probably is what's more likely. So like all of a sudden I'm getting like, bold 8. Okay, I'm definitely flipping 10 cards and I'm definitely going to KO that bot. So like, I don't know. To me, it's more in that shell where I think it can fit into a quote like relatively normal deck. Because of that. So like, I don't think you have to necessarily. I mean, obviously you can do the whole like
combo-y thing.
Yeah, but I don't think you'll need to. I think the nature of the deck being able to be 4 wide means you should be able to get through to your target automatically, but if they're a 3 wide deck. So it should be pretty well positioned. I don't know. It
is entirely possible. I remember, like I said, going back to the UFO thing, calculating in a spreadsheet all the math to be like, okay, when can I expect to do it? And it seemed possible, but there were much more powerful things you could be doing. I think it does offer some advantages to your point about the airstrike patrol. Maybe this is a home for the off-road patrol because they have bold and it just buys into that whole, well, I'll flip more cards.
And then you get confidence too, so that's a good point.
Exactly. So you have some options there. Hypothetically, since Cosmos doesn't actually care how many blues you have, how big your defense or hit points are, maybe this is another hypothetical black pip deck, because then your little guys do something to the rest of their team, and then Cosmos, like you said, if you're 4 wide, just blows somebody up. But that
you wouldn't care. You wouldn't care what color your deck is as long as you can make sure that attack happens. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's going to depend on the remainder of what you're seeing, sort of thing, in the meta wise. So it's broken record again at this point, but there's a lot of potential both for the card type, I think, for this particular card as well. And I do appreciate that they have the artwork on there again, like the same Cosmos artwork from at least the character. I think the background's different. Dan would know better since he has 1,000 of them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's a complete black background. I'm not sure.
It's the exact same artwork.
Is it? I can't remember what the Wave 1 one was, like whether Earth was in the background or something.
Yep, same artwork.
Okay. Well, point being is I do appreciate the callback that those are unifying, especially since it's this specific Cosmos, assuming we see another one in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like an easy thing for them and for players to recognize, that's all.
Yeah, Wizards has made an effort, and I know they would do this in Magic, where if the card had, in recent stuff, if a card referenced 3 targets, there would be like 3 things in the artwork to represent that, and they made efforts to try and unify, and this is just another one.
Yeah, I guess the one thing we didn't mention is like that these are in the like Micro Master, Battle Master slot of the pack.
I was about to bring that up actually, so I'm glad you did.
Along with the heads, I think, right? Like, I think the way it read.
I was going to ask that question. Yeah, I'm not clear on whether the heads are the new Micro Masters or not.
I think either one of them can be in that slot, the way I understood it, what it said. Like, you either get one or the other. They're all part of the same, like, I guess you could say sheet. I don't know. And I don't know, obviously, when we talk about it, like, I don't know that a Titan Master comes with a Titan head guaranteed in the same pack. That would be really hard to, like, probably really hard to, like,
assuming not.
No, because even in the article, it says that they're interchangeable, and it looks like there's, like, that one, to me, looks like a generic head, like it's not like it has anything specific to Cup, right?
Well, I'm holding the toy right now, and it literally is Flintlock.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying, like, it just, to me, it like the way I read it was like that it was like an interchangeable thing type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm going to assume that it's.
I think it'd be
all
a
random,
nightmare.
But yeah,
I think it'd be a packaging nightmare.
Like, just the logistics of it would be tough, but it would be interesting, I think, if they did guarantee, and again, everybody out there listening or watching, this is all speculation, like, if they guaranteed, quote unquote, a large, a body with a head it would probably also be random because then that would be another layer, I would think, of trying to pair everything up properly.
I don't think it has to be the actual, what's it called? The actual head that's
Titan
supposed
Master.
to just any one of them.
Did they? I didn't read in the article, but at least I don't remember. Did they say that the heads were like Micromaster size?
Yeah, they're battle card size. Yeah,
okay.
They are. Yeah,
sure.
They come in that battle card slot. Like I think the let me see if I can find it. The Amazon
listing.
I thought it was just
shout out to Cameron, Super Sleuth Cameron, who found that early this morning.
Yeah.
I'll
Good
try
for
to
you,
find
bro.
it.
I could see him in chat. That's why I wanted to make sure I gave him a shout out.
I get to see like going on Amazon this morning. It's like, hey, you might want to buy. Oh, that's
it's like,
new.
wait, what?
That's how I see that going.
Yeah, right. Although he did, I think he tweeted out or something that it is commonplace on the toy side of things that the Amazons, the WalMarts, the Targets, they don't care. They're big enough that they just list stuff. So people are always on the lookout for those things to try and glean information.
Right.
But anyway, so to that point about where they're going to be seated within the pack, it looks like, I guess, the S is for stratagem, and we're going to get 30 of these.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is on the Titan Master.
Well, when we pull it up momentarily, I will tell you. Because I do have that on there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which 30 characters, given that this is Cosmos. I mean, there was no indication in the article, as far as I recall, and I'm skimming it real quick to make sure I'm not totally off base, but I don't see anything indicating that it's going to necessarily be all Wave 1 guys.
Okay, I'm sorry. It does say 2 foil character cards, 1 small head and 1 large body, or 1 large foil character card with a stratagem card. Wow, this is going to be some bad distribution. This is not going to work out well.
Oh boy. This could get complicated very quickly, folks. Well, the good news is they're all interchangeable, so you don't have to have the specific one, except for you collectors out there who, good luck.
No, but I mean, that means they automatically come with 1 period. So, that means, obviously they, that it's the whole thing for limited. If you didn't get 1, then you wouldn't actually be able to play them, either one of them. So
basically, if you open 6 packs and you didn't open a single head, then you can't play one of your headmasters.
Right. Which, given, I can already hear some people saying, well, it's a similar thing to Brunt and Six Gun, but this is taking it to another degree. This is significant. This is a significant shift. Well,
not only that, it's even worse because you're maybe it's more than 6 packs like they discussed for limited anyway about going up to more packs. But if you open up 6 packs and you open up 2 headmasters and then no heads, well, now you're down to 4 bots to choose from.
And you might have to literally play all of them because that's what you got.
That's what I'm saying. So that would be the interesting part.
Yeah, it's good you brought that up. Drew did mention in the interview that they're considering modifying that, so I'm very curious where that goes. But I'm sure we'll get something on that soon. Well, maybe not soon. We'll see. So anything else about stratagem before we dive into the stuff we've already been covering? Or starting to cover?
No, like I said, it just depends on what. Obviously, the starting cost of the character and adding. I just assume that a lot of these characters that. How do I say it? I hope it doesn't just target characters that were not in the meta before. I hope that there's options where it's like Wheeljack's he's play, for example. If you want to, here's a 2-star stratagem to make him even more powerful, but you don't have to use it. You can still use him as the 9-drop. Here's just another flavor of an ability on him. I don't think it necessarily just has to be for quote underpowered characters.
Well, to Dan's earlier point, I could see using Wheeljack as an example, his stratagem giving him tough 3 instead of bold 3, something like that, where it just completely inverts the character in question. Not necessarily that Wheeljack is the best candidate or that's even going to be good, but I could definitely see that route happening.
Well, here's a question, because you're definitely more in the Transformers lore idea. Are you
sure?
You've had all these characters and revisioned and remodeled throughout the years. So even say if they made a new character and gave it a stratagem, like they could have made the new character the way they wanted to see it play normally, but they're like, hey, as a throwback, we're gonna replace this text with this text, and so you have the option to play it that way.
Oh,
right?
to like reference some other lore option, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely characters that I mean, Wheeljack is actually an example. So he was
Right.
always a mad scientist in the old stuff, and even more recently. But there was a period of time when Transformers Prime, so like the end of the 20-aughts, around 2010, where he was a wrecker and he was basically a ninja.
Yeah.
Like but a bruiser ninja is weird. Like it was a complete departure from, hey, you have this nerd who created the Dinobots, to I'm a complete badass that's part of the Autobots Black Ops team. Like,
Right.
So there's definitely options
it could just
for
be
that.
a way for them to tell a different story.
Absolutely. And given that they've repeated the phrase throwback set many times, it could also be, throwback to whatever era they decide to choose.
Right.
Cameron's thrown out in the chat that he'd be curious to see no star stratagems with the Wheeljack example where it's just inverting something. And I mean, I could see that, but I don't know. I feel like they're going to be all star costed. Do you guys think that?
They said in the article they all have star cost.
They did? Okay. Well, then there goes that idea. Sorry, Cameron.
The other option is to nerf a character, using quote unquote nerf a character. You wouldn't have to use it. There would be obviously none in this set, but like an option for the future is to like take stars away, and then you keep, like, for example, the base of the character around, but they lose something.
Yeah, it would be like -1 health, -1 defense, -1 star.
Right. So there's ways to play around with that as well in the same type of idea. So
yeah, that's actually a good point, and I'm very curious because and this is just me speculating, I would assume, especially for the first go round, all of them are going to be quote unquote positive effects, where it's going to require a star and then give you something as opposed to subtracting. Even if
they
it's
said that in the article.
Okay.
Yep.
Even though strategically it's interesting, it definitely is one of those. I guess it's a feel bad sort of thing where it's like, oh, well, I got something that depowers my guy. That's not very fun.
Yeah, but it could be if you keep most of the abilities.
Oh yeah, like I said, strategically it could be very interesting, but since that's not an option for this go round, I guess we can put a cap on that one. So any other thoughts for this before we move on to the other new mechanic?
Nope.
Okay. So do you guys want to cover the body first, or do you want to cover the head?
I want to cover the ability first.
Okay. Well, so go ahead, Scott. You take it. I'm going to change up the overlay so people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah. So this ability is clearly the other flagship ability of the set in the Titan Master. Since it's the name of the set, I think it's really interesting that the characters look like they're very low star cost to begin with, but in reality, you have to play ahead with them. Like it says it right in the reminder text at the bottom of the alt mode. So like it has to start and play with the head. So you automatically are going to be up in stars from wherever you start. So
yeah.
What do you do?
He's just showing off his toys.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what I always do.
So you're automatically up in star cost for where you start. So I think what that adds is a lot of options. So like obviously we've only seen one head and one Titan Master, but assuming that the Titan Master, like the heads run the gamut of different star costs, like you could have characters anywhere from like, +1 star to +4 stars, +6 stars, like whatever you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just opens up a lot of options for the individual bodies to play with any individual head, which means you could have the same shell ran like what, 15 different ways, like however many of these characters is going to be. Like every Titan Master essentially has however many heads there are incarnations that you can actually play with them.
Right. So
that's
on
insane.
to the specific numbers, it's Flintlock is the one that we have up on screen. That's the one that was revealed today, and it's for Cup. It's a rare, and it's number 22 of 46, T22 specifically. So I think we can infer how many we're looking at.
Well, I mean, there's just 46 characters in this set. That's like Micromasters don't take up their own.
Yeah, so
like
this is that's where I was going with it is whether this does or does not have its own set.
No, it doesn't. They're just part of the character. They're just part of the characters.
So I guess we can dive, let me kick it to Dan first before we dive into the specifics. Dan, Headmasters as a thing. Obviously, you're looking at it from the mechanics standpoint rather than the lore part where I was boring everybody with it earlier on. Clearly, we're looking at a lot of variety again, so thumbs up?
Yeah, it's definite thumbs up. And, like, I'm not sure exactly how much we're going to get in or out of this, but the entire idea of the way this changes gameplay, to me, is ridiculous. Because, like, now you have this scenario where your character dies and all of a sudden your game's not over, you get to pop off and have another go-ahead. It's kind of like having heroic resolve on your character. I guess you come out with a smaller character, but even if we just use the example of the orange-black deck that just finished in the finals, you know, how many games come down to 1 to 3 damage, right? So, like, if your game comes down to that and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I kill your guy. Okay, cool. Pop off. I get another attack. I'm going to get in there for 3 damage. I'm going to win the game because of it. So it's this weird concept of scenarios where not only do you have all these puzzles to put together with the different heads and the different bodies and stuff like that, but now you have this different way that the game can end. And I think it's actually all very intriguing.
Yeah, it definitely is going to produce those weird scenarios. And it's simultaneously simple and complex the way I'm picturing it in my head. And I know that sounds silly, but I think the comparison to having an innate heroic resolve is probably, when you said that was a very concise way to clear it up in my mind of one way to look at it. And I'm definitely interested to see how these actually play out and which combinations, because you get all these various, combinations that you can put together with all the characters that are going to be showing up. Just like mechanics we've seen in the past, it's very... As of right this second, it's hard for me to get my head around it. Again, no pun intended. So, do you want to...
It's more like Metroplex, right? Like, you have more characters later than you have now. Like, you gain characters as the game goes on. Like, it's the opposite of a Battle Master.
Right. I mean, like Metroplex, yes. Obviously not the same, because you are restricted in when they show up. And that's the part where it becomes is simpler to me in my head as compared to the complexity of all the various combinations, is that, okay, well, you're going to get this little guy, or presumably little guy, because he's 4 stars, decent-sized body, and I'll go over all the stats momentarily, but he's going to show up at the end of the game, most likely, and then you get your one shell stand. I still function, essentially, because presumably the guy's going to eat it quickly.
Yeah, but, like, like what Dan was saying, like, you get the attack, like, right away. I think you can be more aggressive with these characters. Like if they're, depending on, like, I don't think this is the most aggressive character in the world, but,
well, yeah.
Assuming there are other ones that are more aggressive, like, it might be okay to lose them, because you're just then at that point just getting a free attack.
Right.
So, at that point, something like using an I still function just becomes even more insane, for example. So, like, there's just a lot more. I think the different play pattern of, like, we're now used to, like, I'm going to Peace through Tyranny my Battle Master, and there's huge advantage there. Like, I don't think you're going to Peace through Tyranny this bot and then want to, like, use the head, but, like, maybe you do, but, like, there's going to be opposite scenarios where it's like, I want to be aggressive with this character, just get them KO'd in normal combat, and then get a free attack out of the deal. Like, there's not a lot of easy ways to do that in this game. Like, it's, it's essentially like a built-in, at minimum, heroic resolve, ready for action, I still function, whatever you want to call it. So
Right. Yeah, you can definitely. There's going to be weird scenarios, whether it's as a result of Peace Through Tyranny or other things that are going to take advantage of this new mechanic. I mean, while the one that we were presented with today is a more defensive-oriented character, I'm sure there's going to be aggressive ones, and that's where maybe that Peace Through Tyranny turn is not as far-fetched as we may think at the moment.
yeah, in my opinion,
Yeah, I mean, especially if they have the headmaster. I'm just going to end up keep calling them that instead of Titan Master, just out of habit. But they appear to have decent stats. Like having 4 attack and a 4-star is pretty decent.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess unless you guys want to start with the head, do you want to start with the bodies?
Doesn't matter.
So I happen to have the body up at the moment. So we're talking about Sergeant Cup here. Sergeant Cup has lots of stuff going on. So he's a leader, he's a truck, he's a wrecker, he's ranged, he's 7 stars. He's a 310-2. He has tough 1, and when one of your wreckers takes 1 or more damage during your turn, it gains that much attack until end of turn. Go over to, we'll call it bot mode. It's really bot. It's actually, now that I'm looking at it, it literally says body mode on there.
Yeah, which might be important for certain cards.
Such as marksmanship?
Yes.
Yep.
So the question, well, I'll ask the question afterwards. Sorry, I don't want to derail everything.
We don't know the answer, so.
Yeah, well, yes, but I was going to put the question out there into the ether. I don't know what word I was looking for. Anyway, so Sergeant Cup body mode, wrecker ranged leader, 4-10-2. When you flip to this mode, you may scrap a blue card from your hand. If you do, scrap an enemy upgrade. So you get a vaporize. And then the head provides tough 3.
Well, you can use any head you want.
Right. With this particular head, which is for Flintlock, the only one we've seen so far, 4 stars, and you get tough 3. So that would make him 11 tough 4. 11 stars, tough 4.
Mm-hmm.
In alt mode.
Alt mode.
Correct. In vaporize mode, you get to vaporize something.
And you're still tough 3.
Yeah.
Correct. Which, I mean, obviously you're losing 1 tough, but like, that's still tough 3. That's a lot.
Once again, you get to start the game with the body armor in play. Awesome.
In just this situation, like we
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that is going to come up through spoiler season. I don't know how we're going to do this. I was actually thinking about this as I was putting together the overlay of like, okay, guys, we're going to talk about a new body. Just assume all the other heads. Hope you guys at home have the list next to you because I can't get them all on screen. Like, it's just not going to happen. Maybe I'll just have them side by side and have a rotating one. I don't know. I'll figure it out offline.
Just make a splash of all of them at once. It's fine.
I could, but I want to make it like somewhat legible.
All the heads. Just all the heads.
Okay. John,
mode, yeah.
I'll figure something out. But Dan, you want to start off with this one? You sounded pretty excited about starting off with body armor.
Yeah. I mean, tough 3. Like, yeah, it's technically at the cost of 4 stars, but you have to play it. You can't play this card in alt mode without a head. So, I mean, and like with its ability already of being tough 1 in this mode, and then flipping to get a blue. This guy probably wants tough 3 anyway, just to start. So this was a great head to show off with this body because
I feel like they're all going to you're going to have a reason to play the one that quote unquote goes with them.
Right. But I mean, it's interesting too, because his ability is a very aggressive ability. So, maybe if you look at it like, and I'm sure people have already said it, but just a simple 1 shell stand now represents 3 damage to you, but 6 damage to them type scenario. So like you could see this if they release a head with bold 3, like you might see it the same way, like I'm just gonna 1 shell stand my dude and then flip to the other mode, and I might not have a blue or whatever, but I get more attack and I get my plus attack from my alt mode ability. So like this guy at 11 stars can probably all of a sudden hit like a truck. So and the wrecker thing, as since we didn't really talk about it too much, Wrecker's really interesting. It's it's another new keyword that I'm sure we'll see more of, and maybe even some very specific Wrecker cards or whatever that will help aid this strategy more. But he just looks like, just from his card text, like, oh, maybe he's like the leader of the Wreckers type scenario, which he is a leader also. So it'll be interesting to see like what this guy can be lined up with.
Absolutely. So Scott, how much do you care about season 3?
Of the cartoon?
Yeah.
It's not the best season.
I knew Dan would have no idea what I was talking about, so that's why I asked you.
It's great.
It's certainly not the best season.
Are you saying you didn't like the second half of the movie and the characters?
Well, this is like season 4, right? Headmasters, like it's technically.
Well, yes. I don't know. Was Cup actually a headmaster at that point?
No, he was.
I mean, I'm looking at him just as Cup. Okay, he's part of the main cast now. But anyway.
Yeah.
Digression aside, are you as enthused as Dan about this guy?
Yeah, his body's insane. Like the character, the bot itself is insane. Like no matter what head you put with it. Like so you have the built-in synergy with One Shell Stand, with Photon Bomb, with I don't know what else right now, but like
Static Laser of Ironhide.
Yeah, that's a good one. So you have like on any of your Wreckers. So like it's another like a Lord ability, like whatever. I assume they'll all have some kind of weird thing like that, I would assume, or else like what's the point of being one, or else they just have this Lord, who knows.
Right.
Again, like Dan mentioned, you have to have a head with it. You do get the buff in both modes. So like you can't evaluate this just like as a 7-drop. Like that just doesn't work. So you have to evaluate the entire package together, and I think he does have low stats for like an 11-drop, obviously.
Right.
But I don't think that matters when you're running around with like tough 4 guaranteed. So it's not that big of a deal. And then you flip to Vaporize, which is like that is complete deck changing. Like first of all, like even if you're playing an orange deck, he's a leader, so you can just pitch a Matrix, or pitch a rollout or something like that. Like you can pitch dual pip cards. So like, that's already like, even if you are playing an aggro deck, like you can play the Matrix and you're fine. You'll still have the ability whenever you draw it. But the other key is like a lot of decks now, like a lot of like blue decks are running a Bashing Shield, or they're running like an Enforcement Batons and things like that. And if you're playing a control deck with this guy, you won't need to do that. Like you have your flip to alt mode has like your flip to bot mode, not even back to alt mode. So one flip in the game and you get a built-in Vaporize. Like that is extremely powerful. Like that is probably
it's quote unquote starting with that card in hand.
Right. I mean, so you're starting with a body armor in play and a Vaporize and like many of them.
It's starting to make what is it, Wave 3 Ratchet look real bad? Or Wave 4 Ratchet, whatever one starts with Medic.
Because he looked good before, right?
Well, I'm just saying, like, now it's real looking bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That card.
It was the first one that I was going to... Actually, it wasn't the first one. The first one I thought of was Wheeljack with the Brainstorm, but I thought the Ratchet comparison was funnier, so...
Yeah.
I decided to go with that one.
It's one flip away from getting an on-board, like, Vaporize. So, like, you can literally just take cards out of your battle deck by playing a character, and there haven't been that many times that you could do that. So when you look at the whole package in general, he's a 4, what was his health again? 4-10?
He's 10-2 in both modes. It's 3-4 attack that changes.
Okay. So, like, if you just use this head with the tough 4, then at that point in alt mode, I mean, obviously, pretty ridiculous like that. I think that's the most tough that a character actually has on them, outside of having, like, an upgrade on them.
Tough 4, nothing could come close to that.
Yeah.
I feel like there might be a tough 3 guy that I'm not... Well, there's Aimless, but yeah.
Yeah.
But the key is, like, this is before you do anything. So this is before you play Hidden Fortification. This is before you play any kind of armor. Before you put a sparring gear on them, etc. Like, you already have a tough 4. Like, the head can't go away. Like, this isn't like... You can't bash it. This isn't Ultra Magnus armor. can't bashing shield the head.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
But yeah, I mean, somebody did joke offline. It's like there's going to be a card, boom, headshot, and it's going to drop them off.
It was Palmer. Give him
Was it?
credit,
Oh,
right?
it was Palmer. You're
Palmer.
right. All right, shout out to Palmer there. He wins the event, and then he's got the one-liners. My man's doing everything.
So assuming that doesn't exist, because that would just be weird. Like I think that's the thing that people need to take into consideration is like you can't
Interact with these.
You can't get rid of it. Like
So
I mean, like I don't think we're like repeating the Return to Oz disturbing scene with the girl taking her heads off, like, you know, so
wow, deep cuts.
Exactly.
deep cuts. What is happening?
Right.
So, you know, I just think that if this is the way that these, and obviously this is a rare, but like if this is the way that these Titan Master characters are going to go with extremely powerful, like flip to bot modes, which you very rarely see, and onboard interaction with the head that already goes onto them, and then on in-game interaction with other cards that already exist in the meta, like I don't like this seems extremely powerful to me.
Yeah.
Because it interacts with battle cards you already want to be playing, and then it allows you to save space in your battle deck because it has an insane flip ability that will never not be powerful. So
right. The oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and I mean, if we see cheaper heads, the abilities on the character just get even better. Because I don't even think it matters, to be honest with you, other than from a survivability standpoint.
I was about to say, I think losing tough 3, I mean, I was going to be the wet blanket momentarily, but I think losing tough 3 on this guy would be significantly problematic.
But if he cost like 8 or 9 instead, would you care? Like,
he's like, let's say he's like 9 stars with like bold 2, like you're not going to care like that. He's not like he's probably not your centerpiece character anyway.
Well, at that stage, no, it's gonna, but it's gonna then compare to whatever the other 9 stars are. Where again, it's gonna matter what the text is. Yeah, if one of the other Titan Masters comes out and gives you bold 3, and he's only 9 stars or even 10 star or whatever, okay, sure. I don't know if we care, but a lot of those are, of course, hypotheticals. We don't have any idea. This is all we got so far. To play wet blanket a little bit, I am concerned, at least to some extent, about only having 10 health.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Tough 4 is a lot. Don't get me wrong. And then if it's tough 7 to 9, it's going to be tough to push damage on this guy. But I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that we're going to get some relevant orange tools and or relevant burn. So right now, marksmanship, I guess, is at an all-time low. Again, not from a financial perspective, but from a strategic perspective, simply because of the prevalence of airstrike. If this guy starts showing up, I mean, I'm assuming right now he's immune to marksmanship because
I would read it that way. Yeah.
But point being is that is now there going to be a resurgence of one shell stance to combat this guy, aside from him utilizing it, or whatever other tools that happen to show up, just because with only 10 health, I mean, you don't have to squeak through that much in combat to be able to get him out of combat now.
And I'll go back to it again. The finals deck of the weekend was an orange-black Pierce deck that could easily Pierce 10. So
yeah, especially
the tough looks great, but there are already inboard built tools to combat with that tough.
And presumably, we're going to see. Like every set, we've seen a couple playable black pip cards, or at least reasonable ones, if that trend continues, which, doesn't sound unrealistic. Maybe there is something to that deck. Not saying that the one this weekend was a bad idea or anything, but like it's just building momentum on that front. So it's going to be a matter of that, whether there are other wreckers. I don't know if this guy on his own. So you turn one shell stand into a leap into battle for him,
and you get the one and a bolt of lightning. That's the point.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I know you're getting extra stuff, but is that enough? Because now this guy in a blue deck is 6 attack. which is pathetic for your centerpiece character.
I mean, it also turns on Energon Axe also at the same time. So
Yes.
and flips to get rid of their best upgrade. Is there anything else we need to do in a tournament?
Well, I mean, against a blue deck, maybe none of that matters because you're only at 7 attack or 10 with Energon Axe, which may not be enough to even do any damage, let alone, and that's with you self-damaging. So, like,
I mean, you only cost 11, not 15 or 16, though.
Well, but that's my point. And this is all, again, we've got day one, so this could easily change, obviously. But do I want to play a blue deck with an 11-star character?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the power of just playing 15s, so that's what he's competing against. So
I think he just opens up more playability overall.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's hard to say that like I'm going to play this guy over a Jetfire because there's a 5-star difference, obviously. But he just creates, even at 11 stars, just more potential options.
Absolutely, and like I said, I'm playing Wet Blanket, Devil's Advocate, whatever, just to present another viewpoint for the sake of it. It's not. I don't want to downplay this guy because there's a lot going on, and it is something that I'm looking forward to trying because there's so many moving parts. And that's before you even get to the fact that, oh, well, there's interchangeable heads that maybe there'll be a better one later on. Right. There's just way too many things going on with this guy to discount him, especially on literally day one or day negative 50, 60 something, whatever it is.
Yeah, the other thing is I assume that like then rollout and escape route don't work with him and things like that as well because they simply say you have to bot mode to alt mode.
Yeah, you're right, they do. Because I was about to say they do say go to alt mode, but I'm pretty sure they don't say go from A mode to alt mode.
Yeah, because they don't work with triple chainers unless you're already in the bot mode.
Right.
So, like showing off would work, and like, I don't know what else, but like a lot of those cards specifically say the mode they're in or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely, and I'm very excited to see the remainder. In fact, I tweeted out that I was going to pull a bunch of toys out of the case. Like, I actually am looking forward to hopefully seeing Broadside and Blunderbuss because I think that Headmaster's hilarious.
Sure.
He's literally the aircraft carrier for the aerial bot, so I know Dan's excited. He's done his research on aerial bots.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Obviously. But anyway, any other thoughts from either of you guys about Cup specifically? And then we can talk a little bit about Flintlock himself.
No, he's powerful. Any flip to bot mode ability is powerful.
Yes.
Just to quickly correct, you can rapid conversion.
Yeah, you can rapid conversion. You can't escape route or rollout. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't escape route or rollout, but you can rapid conversion.
I forgot rapid conversion existed, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's plenty of unplayable cards you can play with this card. That's fair.
It's funny how far that card has fallen. I'm not gonna lie.
I use it in the sideboard ones.
Of aerial bots to make the circle go full round.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Somebody even saying sure in chat. So.
You can't be cornered either. I guess was the other thing somebody mentioned.
Oh boy, got him.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that one a few months. You know, it's going to be funny when, like, a couple weeks, it's going to be a relevant scenario. Like, some card's going to come out, and we're going to be like, God damn it, if only we could corner the Cup.
If you're going to corner him to put him in the tough mode so the next turn he can flip back and destroy another upgrade, you're making the wrong play, all right?
Yeah. Agreed. Just saying.
There could be some flaws in your strategy. Just a few.
Throw that out there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you, Scott, about maybe that's not the most exciting part, but, like, it definitely was one of the things that got me the most excited is that it's a flip to bot mode, in this case, body mode ability. I'm always on the lookout for those, but...
Because it's only one flip away. Like,
exactly.
I mean, I don't think you necessarily going to do this on turn one unless you're facing, like, Omni or something like that, but, I mean, like, you know, it doesn't mean it has to be the only character that flips that either. That's the point.
Yeah, so it's turn one, flip Flame War. send this guy in with top 5, and and then vaporize their play and just be like, all right, beat me.
Yep.
All right, I think that's enough for Cup. We'll talk about the headmaster himself, or Titan Master. Again, I apologize, everybody, for the incorrect terminology. So obviously, we talked about him being 4 stars and that he provides tough 3 when he is attached to a body. But as a bot himself, so this is actually a bot mode for them, he's a 4/4/0 melee with tough 3, and he's a Titan Master in case... I'm sure we'll get at least one Titan Master tribal card.
Probably. But
I mean,
it won't be as good because you don't get to use them until like later in the game. But
sure. You have probably one turn to use them.
Yeah, which means... So if we do that, I would assume they'd have to be intensely splashy, and therefore it's going to be...
They have to be real good.
But that's going to feel real bad, because it's like... I don't know, it feels like one of those really variance-ridden scenarios, where it's like they have to find it, they have to sit on it until this happens, which I guess it will always happen in the course of a game, and then they snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and you're going to feel miserable when that happens.
Probably, yeah.
But anyway, that's all hypothetical. So for the actual guy, as I was saying earlier, like 4/4 is decent stats, and if we're assuming a world where, oh look, there's 1 shell stands left and right, 4 health is kind of relevant.
This guy can be marksmanship.
He can be marksmanship. But he won't die to the marksmanship, at least not just the marksmanship.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Dan? Like, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say to him about him because he's going to be the last guy on the board.
So just because like I do this all the time, the art on this dude I think is awesome. Yeah, I love the double pew pew dual wielding gunshots. And then like the whole chaos that he's in. It's almost like behind him is the exploding body type thing. So it's like
it's actually cool. Yeah, that's a good call. And I guarantee he's a little guy, so his guns are definitely going pew pew.
Right, pew pew, right? But I mean, 4 health, tough 3, depending on where we're at, like this guy he might have a chance to survive, So
Aimless survives a lot of things, surprisingly. Right. So I mean, there's a chance.
Right. So depending on where the game state is, like maybe this guy does get 2 hits because of tough 3. I don't know. But in the end, it's going to be a matter of what you can do. Like you're going to have to set up for this turn. Like you're going to need some way to win the game with this card as your last ditch effort. Which is where I kind of went back to the Pierce stuff. Is like, you're going to leave a character on 2 health, and this guy's going to get to attack, and hopefully you can flip 2 blacks to win the game. But
yeah,
I don't know. It'll be tough to really see the game states and where they are when we get to playing with these cards.
Yeah, it is notable in the scenario that you're describing that you end up with just him on the board. You're trying to squeeze it out. Presumably, if you were playing him with the Cup body, it was blue pip base. Cup was ranged. I think everybody can see where I'm going with this. He becomes melee, and then it gets awkward very quickly, potentially. Hey, anyway,
Energon Slingshot, okay?
That is a card you could play. Believe me, I've tried on many occasions. But what about you, Scott? Do you care about Tiny Aimless?
I mean, he'll be there if you play with him. So I mean, like,
he'll always be there for you, Scott. He will be.
I mean, the problem is, as it stands right now in a blue-based deck, like the most important weapons they can play are Energon Axe stuff, and this guy won't be able to actually. I mean, he can use a javelin, but
yeah, sure.
I don't think he'll ever be.
You could use a javelin. You're not wrong.
I mean, because if you're playing a ranged deck, you're going to want to use hovercrafts occasionally, and they're not going to be able to play them on him. And then Energon Axe has a very small window where it's ever going to be able to to him. So
I mean, like back to the 1 shell stand thing though, with just comboing with Cup, like you could have those in your deck, and like you can 1 shell stand this guy and he lives. And maybe that's enough to win the game.
I mean, 5 damage could get there if that's your last ditch.
Yeah, I mean, the key is getting an extra attack. I just don't know that out of a blue deck it's going to matter. Obviously, if you're playing against an orange deck, it's going to do guaranteed damage.
Mhm.
I just don't know how much damage he's going to be able to actually put out there, considering the typical lineup that a blue deck will be playing in terms of weapons.
I'd agree with
So,
that. Yeah.
That's to me what it'll come down to, and I just fear that like he might just attack for 0 and then go away because like there's just no way that you can actually get damage through without continuing to have a lot of cards in hand because
let's hope we get new blue weapons.
Yeah, because I would imagine that like
I mean, he can carry Noble's Blaster. Let's not get carried away. He's got options.
I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Because the upgrades don't transfer over to the head, so it's like you have to then suit him up as an entirely new character.
God, that'd be insane.
Yeah,
that'd be too good.
So because of that, like you have to
scavenge the battlefield. I don't know how that trigger would work. Sorry, somebody just said that in chat.
I assume it'll work.
I mean, they should. I would. And again, it'll be they both trigger. You get to choose the order. You obviously choose the appropriate one.
Yeah, and I don't like, for example, things like involuntary promotion. I think will only look at the stars of the original character. Same with like one I still function. Like it'll only care about like in this situation, like it'll only care about cup star cost, not there's no such thing as like a combined star cost. Like you're not adding to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're like it's not like you're adding to the unit. It's like just the character that you'd be doing any of these things with. So
makes sense.
You could like involuntary promotion the body into getting the head and then another character back, like etc. Like
I mean, in these hypothetical orange base Titan Master builds, that doesn't seem insane.
Well, I mean, doesn't seem far-fetched.
What was that?
You mean it doesn't seem like something you wouldn't do? Like
it seems like something that is viable, to phrase it differently, yeah. As compared to, like, I don't anticipate you're going to want to involuntary promotion this guy, for example. I mean, maybe there are scenarios where you would want to, but...
Yeah, but I mean, you can get in scenarios where about the body, the head automatically pops off untapped, and then you get the other character back untapped, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have like this, like a bunch of guys now suddenly that you're giving it a 2-on-none situation instead of a 1-on-1 to none situation. So
right.
Yeah, the main thing for him, like I said, is just out of a blue base deck, as long as you can find weapons to put on him to get his attack a little bit higher, because I assume it's going to be in the mid to late game when this actually happens, and you can bust through whatever you're attacking. Again, assuming it's not an orange deck, but I do think that we, in general, though, this ability overall, they have to be. I mean, I'm assuming they playtested the heck out of it, but like, it seems like a really bad time for orange decks. Especially white orange decks, because they pretty much go all in with characters that are basically just one-shotted back.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you're going all in to kill the body portion of a Titan Master, which I don't even know that you can do when it has tough 4, but and you're leaving yourself exposed, and suddenly like, I don't care, I still get this head anyway, and now I just one-shot your guy back. Like, you really didn't accomplish much. Like, you didn't actually get one of the characters off the table, quote unquote. Like, you still then have to basically attack that guy again. Like, it's
going to depend on. I mean, obviously, given we only have one to go by, this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's complicated and simple looking at these. Where yes, they're getting an extra body, but does that body matter significantly? So, to your point, this guy, it's not guaranteed he's one-shotting anybody, even a damaged aggro character. Just because he's tiny, like.
But if you're aggro on aggro, like
in that scenario, yes, yeah.
The team with the Titan Masters wins automatically, right? Like guaranteed, no doubt about it.
It depends. So, like, what if you're a 3-wide Titan Master team? So you're quote unquote 4 because you have the head. I'm not sure exactly how that relationship plays out against, say, a regular 4-wide.
If the 4-wide deck is automatically one-shotting all your guys, story. But if your guys are slightly big enough to take hits where it takes two of their guys to KO one of yours, and then you get an extra guy, like especially in a certain order where then the head can then block for another more significant guy, like the strategic implications are like all over the board.
Exactly, and that's why I definitely hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing. It's one of those, I don't know how exactly this is going to play out because we need to see more of the bodies and more of the heads to see what they can or can't do, what the numbers are.
Yeah,
go ahead, Dan.
What Scott just said, I think like if you really look at it that way, for aggro decks, and you can like create this out of nowhere blocker to delay your your centerpiece from being attacked, that's a big deal. It's one of those where it's like, your opponent goes in with a plan, and they're like, oh, I'm going to get to that guy on this turn. And you're like, nope, no, you're not.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, it has a sort of blaster thing because you're deploying stuff.
Yeah,
it has sort of there's a lot of, you can see where I'm not sure where in the design this idea came about, but like, I could see where it would have hypothetically or potentially built upon other things they had tried. Or like if they pulled this out of a drawer, like we know we want to do Titan Masters, what have we already done? And then this is kind of the evolution of some of those ideas.
Yeah, I just think the fact that it happens essentially on your opponent's turn just adds a whole new wrinkle to attacking and blocking.
Absolutely.
And like we've talked about this a lot offline, but like what separates players in this game is those that can deviate from a set plan.
Yep.
As to how a game plays out. And I think this is going to add a level of complication that's going to be difficult for players to grasp and see. Like just on the surface, like the strategic elements of this are vast.
Yes. So,
let alone the battle cards that interact with a lot of these, like as we mentioned, which I assume there'll be more. But
yeah,
absolutely.
I wonder. Somebody had mentioned Quartermaster in chat. I'm curious if we'll get a Quartermaster effect for this sort of thing. That seems like it would be absurdly powerful, but
because then the body like it would reattach and
exactly.
It'd have to be like a Quartermaster that like
puts damage
on or something. It couldn't just be straight Quartermaster.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. But speaking of ridiculous, obviously we didn't get it in the preview article. I know that, and it's funny, I'm looking at the preview article and my eyes just constantly go to the typo of stratagem every time, and I'm not sure how that happens. But anyway, we're supposed to be getting, and if you're listening to this afterwards, the official Transformers TCG account tweeted out that there's going to be a article explaining the mechanics of all of this and the rules associated with it in more depth on Friday. So a few days ago, if you're not watching or listening to this live. I'm curious how these are going to interact with sideboards, just in general. Whether the bodies, the heads, and everything together, it's going to be weird, and I'm very anxious to see what they officially announce for it.
I don't think they're going to officially announce that tomorrow, regardless. I think that needs to be worked out, and there's time to work that out.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of time to work it out if it isn't already set in stone.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't announce that until the FAQ or the rules update for the set comes out, to be honest with you.
I mean, at that level, I could certainly, it's that sort of question that could end up waiting that long.
I don't think you'll be able to sub heads because if you sub ahead to a lesser star cost, the only thing you can gain battle deck stars from your sideboard, but I don't think you'd be able to switch a head and a character. The one that I need to know about is stratagems, because I don't know. Do you sideboard those? Do you take them out of the sideboard?
Yeah, is that counted? That was something I meant to ask earlier. Does that count as in the battle deck to start?
No.
It starts in play.
Well, yes, but is it count as your 40, the Brainstorm Medic thing?
No. It's definitely a quote 41st card. But the question is, if I have a 12-star Cosmos and suddenly I want to side out and put a 12-star character in my sideboard, I assume that's allowed. You lose the character and the stratagem. Well, what if I want to put in? What if I want to keep Cosmos and just lose the stratagem and then lose my, I don't know, 5-star bot and sideboard and a 6-star bot? I assume that's allowed also.
I think the rules, and I know, Dan, you wanted to bring something up, so I'll throw it to you in a second. I'd have to go back and look, but I thought the sideboard, as long as your deck, your battle deck, and your star costs are legal as presented, it doesn't matter if you ended, like your sideboard ended up with a different number of cards. Now, obviously, previously it was, well, you could board a bunch of cards in. Can you end up with 11 cards? And is that okay?
The stratagem isn't a card, quote unquote. I don't think it'll like honestly, it was, like, I don't think it's gonna happen, but like it could have a box border. Like it doesn't even have to have the same border and backing as like a normal battle card. Like,
well, where I'm going with it is, like, to your example, if you wanted to suddenly become 11-star Cosmos again because you want hypothetical 14-star character to come in, your stratagem just goes to the sideboard, I guess, and okay, everybody's fine, just continue playing.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I think that's easy.
I mean, that's the most logical thing, I would think. But maybe a lot of this, at least for me, is just a matter of, are there additional limitations now on how you can present your team and just managing that part?
So,
good.
If we go back to Sentinels,
Mm-hmm.
you could not interchange the Sentinels in which you wrote on your deck list. So I'm assuming it's going to be the exact same way.
Okay. But you could... Yeah. I'm trying to think of the Secret Sentinels thing and how that...
No, it was just,
matter?
they just boarded into Optimus. You could never change the bots that you had registered in your deck to the bots that you registered in your KO because you registered them to your KO. So they're not even like your sideboard character.
Yes.
This is kind of the same scenario where like you're going to register that character with this text box type thing, and I don't think you're going to be able to interchange them in any which way.
Now, what about boarding a body and a head? Are you allowed to board two because you wouldn't be able to?
I don't think so. No.
I doubt it.
I mean, I would doubt it as well. I mean,
Now,
as it's written right now, I don't think you can unless they straight up changed the sideboard rules.
Here's the thing that I was interested in. Do you think you could play two headmasters with the same head?
No.
Because they haven't...
one of each character in play to start the game.
Yeah, but they start in the head mode, which doesn't have a name.
Right.
They are.
No, they don't. Unless its name is Tough 3.
Yeah, plus Tough 3.
Right.
Like the way it's going to work is you present... If there was ever like a presenting phase, which there really isn't in this game, like you show your team, you have to show the star cost of the characters. So assuming like somebody doesn't understand how to play the game or whatever, they don't know the character by like the art, you have to show the star side of the character, and then you would immediately turn it to the head side, put it underneath the alt mode of the Titan.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the stars are on the head side, so technically you never have to show them the bot mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
I don't think so.
I agree. To your point, I think that's likely what it would be. You wouldn't be able to play two flintlocks because like taking a step back, if the whole point is that you're supposed to be running different characters, that's like a silly end around to do that. So I don't think they'll allow it.
I was just curious if this could be like the first chance to do something like that.
I think that it technically, as of right now, I guess there's nothing limiting it, depending on your interpretation of that particular rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely hear what you're saying. I think the reality is when they get to it, they'll just say, no, the names of the characters are the names of the characters.
Yeah, I would assume so. But
there's a lot of weird things with this because it's cool. And
you'll probably have to register the head with the body also. Like you're not gonna be able to even switch the bodies if you played switch the heads if you played two different.
So I just noticed Flintlock doesn't have a subtitle. You know, there's no Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend. It's just Flintlock. So when you register, is it Flintlock / plus Tough 3 as his subtitle?
Well, do the Battle Masters have it?
Yeah, they have. They're like infantry something.
Oh yeah.
Just because I've written Fire Drive so many times, he's infantry something.
That's That's fair.
But yeah, he doesn't have anything on here, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're only battle card size, so maybe there was just no room. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of unique quirks, and I'm looking forward to the rules release update, whatever, for tomorrow, and I'm anxious to see if we get some other spoils in it. I'm sure we will, but that was one thing I was actually a little surprised. I mean, there was so much. I mean, we've been talking about it for, it looks like an hour and a half now on 3 cards.
Told you.
I knew.
I told you.
Yeah,
Not quite an hour and a half.
it's close enough.
He was calling for 45 minutes.
No, I said
here.
I hope we can get 45 minutes. I didn't say we'd hit it. But the point is like, this felt like it was, and I'd have to go back and look, like there was just less cards than there were previously.
Oh, there's certainly. No doubt.
I was trying to think back, like Wave 2, I think it was a team and one of the Enigmas. Wave 3 and 4, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was Predaking, right?
It was either that or the Stunticons. It might have been Predaking.
I think it was Predaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's not important. It was. What was that?
Yeah, it did show all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Windblade and
Yeah.
a green card.
Yep.
Besides the Enigma, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Because we were speculating about how the greens behaved.
Yeah, they were just supposed to heal. Remember?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the next day they told us no.
Yeah. And this is how this is going to work. Whatever we said today is going to be like, yeah, that's not how these cards work.
Yeah.
Well, any other thoughts, gentlemen, as we try and wind down, close up shop, either about the new mechanics, what you're anything?
I don't know. When I was a kid, I wasn't a big fan of Headmasters. I'm just going to throw it out there. So.
When I was a kid, I didn't know what Headmasters were.
I never understood how it actually worked. And like,
yeah,
I don't understand like whose brain it is. Like, I don't like it. Just makes me feel weird. I don't
creatively,
know.
right? Like, just assume that the head is just like this little itty bitty bot driving in the Autobot side.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, the bodies are or were or will be an independent personality.
Right? They're all headless horsemen. They need help.
Well, yeah, but they're supposed to be independent personalities, so it's kind of like the combiner thing.
Right,
are they a new person when they're together? Are they the conglomeration of the two people when they're together? It gets weird.
Like a two minds, one body thing.
Mm.
And like, I always understood that like they're robots, so they can actually like change their form. It doesn't hurt. But like these are like in the show, they were like people wearing suits. Like, doesn't that hurt? Like, I don't understand. Like, this is how I felt as a kid. I don't really know.
Well, the old. Yeah, the G1 ones are definitely. There's been a few different takes on these and how they operate. So anybody out there listening or watching, pick your favorite one and pretend that's canon. I don't know what one's actually canon right now.
Yeah, I just don't know, like, if I'm right or wrong in terms of like, is it who runs the show and all that stuff. I think I watched videos on it and there's no definitive answer.
Well, to be fair, we're talking about a kid's a kid's toy commercial. Like, it's like there have been, and I do love the serious stories. Like in the comics, they really do explain it, but you could also just point at the cartoon and be like, "Well, that's not what they said." And nobody's going to tell you you're wrong. So
listen,
well, but I know the Japanese cartoon was even different. Like I know in the Japanese cartoon, the heads, like it was almost like other shows by other products that we won't mention, where the bots were just like the vessel for the
that is a unique thing. Like in Transformers, the Transformers are a person. That's one of the things I always liked about them, is that they are a living thing as opposed to a container.
Right.
But anyway, what joke were you going to make, Dan, at the expense of Headmasters?
It's like you guys are like just talking about random stuff that never made sense. It's kind of like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like if you watch that show and you watch how they played the game, and then you learn how to play the game, you're like, this isn't how the show does this at all.
No, those are not even remotely close.
Like, that guy played a Blue Eyes White Dragon. I got to jump through hoops to play Blue Eyes White. what the hell? So,
and that
I
card
get
is
it.
also, or was bad. I don't know if it's still bad. I'm not going to lie. This card is not as good as it is in the show. I'm just saying.
So it's the same concept here. It's like, oh, I don't really understand these. Oh, that's what happens.
Don't worry. No one else does either, no matter what they say.
Right.
Well, I think that will cover it for at least this one. Obviously, we're going to be doing spoiler season for a while, folks. But do definitely check out vectorsigma.info. Definitely.
Wait, you didn't mention Fortress Maximus.
I mean, he was in there, but we don't know anything about him yet. Just that he
comes
exists.
in each box, just like Triplicop.
Well, yes, but I meant
but
like what the card does.
Yeah,
We're just
we don't.
throwing out.
Okay, so yeah, like Scott was saying
Also,
in the
there's
article,
Fortress
Fortress Maximus is in there. You're going to get Cerebros and Cerebros is the head character. I'm skimming it real quick to see if you get anything else. I could have sworn there was something else, but I think I'm wrong.
There's the head of the head of the head, which means that
something.
Oh yeah, it's you get Fortress Maximus, the head character Cerebros, and Cerebros' head character Emissary.
Yeah, so we don't know how that's going to work either. Like, I assume it pops off 3 times.
Yeah, it's a Russian nesting doll.
Right. Exactly.
I mean that's so Fort Max like. So I joked offline. Okay, we're now going longer, and I was going to close it up. I joked offline that every time this happens, I'm like, "All right, guys, we're done." And then, oh god, we have like 20 more minutes. I joked offline that I'm going to be pissed if Fort Max is good and Trypticon competitively, and Trypticon wasn't. And then Scott says something like, well, "Trypticon's bad, so I guess you're mad." And I'm like, "Yep, probably going to be mad." I'm just saying.
I mean, by definition, if Fortress Maximus is good, you're going to be mad.
Yes, yeah. And I'm going to be pissed, but whatever. I'll get over it. I'm confident. I mean, I'm excited about these cards. I'm excited about. I feel like every set I get excited about. Well, maybe now Cosmos has a chance. We'll see if this is the time.
You have never ever said that.
I've said it offline. I've never said it on the show. No, like I take it back. I even said it on this show. I said, well, maybe it's Cosmos' time with UFO, like way back when.
What, to kill who? Come on.
At the time, we didn't have Jetfire. We didn't have Galaxy Prime.
No, we said Battlefield Legend, and he couldn't kill either, and was wasting
right.
time trying to do nothing.
Well, but it was just a way to potentially do it, because obviously that would be whatever. It would be the orange deck. We would have had a 4-wide, whatever.
Just stop it.
Anyway, so can we actually?
I can't even get Nemesis to 10. You're worried about killing the opposing character. I mean, come on.
Look, I played a lot of Daring Escape. Anyway, can we actually close up now?
Sure.
Okay. I'm sure
you'll see our opinions and adding Palmer's opinions to vectorsigma.info for all these cards in case we didn't cover something, or in case you're. It doesn't make any sense, but in case you're not listening to this, you'll see it in another medium. Yes.
But also, as we started out the show with, I wanted to call out as one last detail that definitely look for tournament reports, other coverage, and stuff from the past weekend, both PPG and other local events, because as we started out with it, as we definitely were planning on talking about it, and then it's like, oh yeah, there are new cards. We should probably talk about those.
Yeah, we weren't struggling for topics, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're drowning in potential content. So, for Dan, for Scott, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for watching, and please tune in next time for more Tech Talk.